Have you heard about Archer Aviation? They make electric flying taxis. Imagine that. Your commute.
Oh.
Soaring above all that rush hour traffic.
Mm.
We're taking a deep dive into their story today.
Okay.
Using an article from the Motley Fool to see if their stock is worth investing in. Get this. They don't even have any revenue yet.
Wow.
But they're already valued at a staggering $2 billion.
It might seem counterintuitive, but valuing a company that doesn't generate revenue yet isn't all that uncommon, especially when we're talking about cutting-edge technology like this.
Yeah.
Investors are basically betting on the future, looking at the potential of the urban air mobility market, which is predicted to be worth $1 trillion by 2040.
$1 trillion. That sounds almost too big to grasp. What makes analysts think this market could grow to that size? Is there even enough demand for flying taxis to justify that number?
Well, think about it this way. Our cities are getting more and more congested, right?
Right.
People are spending hours stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
And the environmental impact of all those cars is significant. eV2 aircraft or electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft offer a potential solution. They could drastically reduce commute times, ease congestion, and operate with zero emissions.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal. So where does Archer Aviation fit into all of this?
Archer is aiming to be a leader in this emerging market. They're developing eV2 aircraft that can operate as a kind of air taxi service, ferrying people across cities. Think of it like Uber, but in the sky.
So instead of requesting a ride on my phone, I'd be requesting a flight. What would that even look like in practice? Where would these things take off and land?
That's where the concept of vertiports comes in. Imagine designated landing pads integrated into the urban landscape, maybe on top of buildings or parking garages. They're designed to allow these eVTOLs to seamlessly take off and land within cities.
So they're not just building aircraft. They're envisioning a whole new transportation ecosystem. That's ambitious, but are these flying taxis even safe? Can't help but think about helicopters and, well, things going wrong.
That's a valid concern. And safety is a top priority for Archer. Their eVTOLs are designed with multiple small propellers, powered by redundant electrical systems. Unlike helicopters with a single rotor, if one of these propellers fails, the others can compensate, making them statistically safer. Plus, the distributed electric propulsion systems eliminate the risk of a single point of failure that could bring the whole aircraft down. They're also much quieter than helicopters, which is a big plus when you're thinking about integrating them into urban environments.
Okay, that does address some of my initial concerns. But how far along are they in actually getting these things off the ground?
They've actually achieved a major milestone recently. In October 2024, they received FAA approval for their eVTOL design. This was a huge win for them and a crucial step towards making their vision a reality.
So they've got the green light from regulators. What's next for them?
Well, before you can hail a flying taxi, Archer needs to prove that they can actually build and operate these things efficiently and profitably.
So they have the technology, the regulatory approval. What are the biggest hurdles they need to clear before they can actually start generating revenue?
Let's break that down. Building a network of vertiports is going to be a massive undertaking. You're talking about securing locations in densely populated cities, getting permits, and integrating these landing pads into the existing infrastructure. It's not going to be easy.
That makes sense. Getting those vertiports up and running is essential. But even with the infrastructure in place, they still need people to actually use their service right.
Absolutely. Attracting customers is another major challenge. They need to convince people that eVTOL travel is not only convenient and safe, but also affordable. Pricing will be a key factor in determining whether this becomes a mainstream mode of transportation or just a luxury for the wealthy.
So they need to figure out the infrastructure, attract customers, and do it all while keeping costs down. Are there any other challenges on their radar?
They've also got competition to worry about. Other companies are developing their own eVTOL aircraft. And vying for a piece of this potentially massive market, Joby Aviation is a major player in the field, and they actually have an even higher market cap than Archer.
Okay, so it's not just about building the best flying taxi. It's about winning the market share.
Yeah.
And fending off some pretty tough competition.
It's a complex landscape. And that's why valuing Archer at $2 billion, despite having no revenue, is so fascinating. Investors are clearly betting big on their potential. But are they putting their money on the right horse? There are still a lot of unknowns.
So where does that leave us? We've got a company with game-changing technology, a potentially huge market, but some significant challenges ahead. Let's dive deeper into the risks and rewards involved. In the second part of our deep dive, we just talked about some of the hurdles Archer Aviation faces. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the risks for investors. What are the red flags someone looking at their stock should be aware of?
Investing in any company comes with inherent risks. But with a company like Archer that's still in its early stages, those risks are amplified. They haven't generated any revenue yet. So there's no track record to assess their ability to turn a profit.
So even with those big-name partnerships and the FAA's approval, there's no guarantee they'll be successful. It's all about potential, not proven performance.
Precisely. And speaking of those partnerships, converting them into tangible revenue streams is a challenge in itself. Agreements and collaborations don't automatically translate into sales and profits.
What about those other companies working on similar technology? Is the competitive landscape a major risk factor for Archer?
Absolutely. We touched on Joby Aviation earlier. They're a significant competitor, and their larger market cap suggests that investors have even more confidence in their potential. But it goes beyond just Joby. The entire eVTOL space is attracting a lot of attention, with numerous startups and established aerospace companies vying for market share.
So even if Archer managing to overcome those initial hurdles we talked about,
Right.
building the infrastructure,
Right.
attracting customers,
Yeah.
keeping costs down, they still have to outmaneuver their rival.
Exactly. And there's another layer of competition to consider: ground-based transportation. Think about the advancements in self-driving technology.
Oh, yeah.
Companies like Tesla are pouring resources into developing autonomous vehicles, and it's not far-fetched to imagine a future where robo-taxis are a viable alternative to flying taxis.
That's an interesting point. So Archer isn't just competing with other companies in the eVTOL space. They're also competing with potential advancements in traditional transportation.
Right. It's a complex equation with a lot of moving parts. And let's not forget about the regulatory landscape. While they have the FAA's blessing now, future regulations could emerge that impact their operations or increase their costs.
It sounds like there's a lot that could potentially derail their plans. But what about the other side of the coin? What are the potential rewards for investors who are willing to take on these risks?
Well, the potential rewards are, in a word, enormous. If Archer can execute its vision, if they can successfully navigate those challenges and emerge as a leader in this nascent market, the upside for early investors could be astronomical. Imagine being one of the first people to invest in Amazon or Apple before they became the giants they are today.
Okay, now I see why some investors are so excited about this. The possibility of getting in on the ground floor of a truly disruptive technology is incredibly enticing. But how realistic is that? I mean, $1 trillion market sounds impressive. But is there any evidence to suggest that people will actually embrace flying taxis on that scale?
It's definitely not a sure thing, but there are some compelling arguments to be made. Consider the current state of urban transportation. Cities are struggling with traffic congestion, air pollution, and inefficient public transit systems. eVTOLs offer a potential solution to all of these problems.
So it's not just about the novelty of flying taxis. It's about addressing real-world problems that affect millions of people.
Exactly. And if you look at the projections for urban population growth over the next few decades, the need for innovative transportation solutions is only going to intensify. That's why analysts are so bullish on the urban air mobility market. They see a convergence of factors: technological advancements, growing urban populations, and a pressing need for more sustainable and efficient transportation options.
So there's a compelling argument to be made for the long-term potential of this technology. But we're still talking about a company with zero revenue going up against some stiff competition and navigating a complex regulatory landscape. How do you weigh those risks and rewards to determine if Archer is the right investment for you?
That's a great question. And it's a question that each individual investor needs to answer for themselves. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. It all comes down to your personal risk tolerance, your investment goals, and your belief in Archer's ability to execute its vision.
All right, let's unpack that a bit more in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore what factors you should consider when making this decision.
All right, so we've explored the potential of flying taxis, Archer Aviation's role in this emerging market, and the risks and rewards for investors. Now let's get down to the question that's probably on your mind. Should you invest in Archer Aviation stock?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as much as we'd like to give you a definitive yes or no, the truth is there's no easy answer. It all comes down to your individual circumstances and your personal investment philosophy.
So what are the key factors you should consider when making this decision?
Let's start with risk tolerance. Investing in a company like Archer, which is still in its pre-revenue stage and faces a lot of uncertainties, is inherently risky.
Yeah.
You could potentially lose your entire investment before even considering putting money into Archer. You need to ask yourself, am I comfortable with that level of risk? So this isn't for someone who's looking for a safe and predictable return. It's for those who are willing to embrace volatility and potentially weather some storms along the way.
Exactly. This is what's often referred to as a high-risk, high-reward investment. The potential upside is huge, but so is the downside. If you're risk-averse, this might not be the right fit for you.
What about investment goals? How does that play into the decision-making process?
Well, if you're looking for short-term gains, quick flip, then Archer's probably not the right stock for you. This is a long-term play, and it could be years, maybe even a decade or more, before you see a significant return on your investment, if you see one at all.
So patience is key here. It's about believing in the long-term potential of this technology and being willing to ride out the inevitable bumps in the road.
Precisely. Think of it like planting a seed.
Yeah.
You nurture it, you give it time to grow, knowing that it might not bear fruit for years, but if it does, the rewards could be substantial.
So, to recap, before investing in Archer, you need to carefully assess your risk tolerance, consider your investment timeline, and make sure it aligns with your overall financial goals. But even then, it's not a guarantee of success.
Absolutely. There's a lot that could still go wrong.
Right.
Their technology might not live up to expectations, they might struggle to scale their operations, or they might simply be outcompeted by rivals.
So it's a gamble, but a potentially calculated one.
It is. And like any gamble, you need to go in with your eyes wide open, fully aware of the risks involved.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks, the rewards, and the factors to consider. What's the bottom line here? What's your take on Archer Aviation as an investment opportunity?
Look, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't tell you what to do with your money. But what I can say is that Archer is a company with a compelling vision, a potentially game-changing technology, and a team that seems determined to make it a reality. They've already achieved some impressive milestones, like securing FAA approval, and they have the backing of some major players in the aviation and automotive industries.
But they also face some serious challenges. No revenue, intense competition, the complex task of building out a network of vertiports.
Exactly. So it really comes down to your belief in their ability to overcome these challenges and capitalize on the enormous potential of the urban air mobility market.
So it's a high-stakes bet, a leap of faith, but one that could potentially pay off big time for those who believe in the future of flying taxis.
That's one way to put it.
All right, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. Imagine a future where flying taxis are a common sight in our cities. How would that change the way we live, work, and commute? Would you embrace this new mode of transportation?
Would you be willing to trade in your car for a flight across town?
It's a fascinating thought experiment, isn't it? And it's a future that might be closer than we think. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of Archer Aviation and the world of electric flying taxis. We hope you found it informative, insightful, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, the future of transportation is taking flight, and who knows, maybe you'll be on board for the ride.